Hey everybody, Coach here. Thanks for taking a couple of minutes. This week's episode is, like me, just a little tweak on the landscape thought process. We are going to talk about a concept that is not only becoming extinct, but it's a little bit of a missing link too when it comes to these days and these times that we are in. Man, I am so glad that you guys are here. We're talking about paying it forward and taking your newly acquired landscaping skills and turning it into neighborhood leadership. I hope you stay with me. I think this one is very, very special, and it makes your walk and your talk match really, really well. Stay with me, will you? Let's get this thing going. Hey, I'm Matt, and you can call me Coach. Hey, this channel is all about DIY landscape education, design concepts, theories, ideas, and solutions, so you guys can learn how to tackle landscape projects yourself. Be a heck of a lot more self-reliant in this day and age, save a whole lot of money in the process, and like in this episode, become your neighborhood leader. Hey, after 20 years in the green industry, I bring with me and give it to you a lot of knowledge and experience that I want to share, to that new, modern, self-reliant, and educated homeowner of today. Hey, we've seen some of it, Maestro and I, this year, but you can remember back, many, many years ago, even in history books, literally in history books, the old neighborhood barn raising and the old Great Depression, when people kind of rallied around with each other and shared food, shared tasks in order to survive in those very, very trying times that were the Great Depression. It was a concept and a way of life of, lending a hand where a hand was needed. Not necessarily giving a hand out, because you never teach anybody to be self-reliant that way, but actually lending a hand and not having to be asked. You just recognize a need and you offer your skills and your services to help out a neighbor. Growing up, I can remember as a young boy, say between the ages of 10 and 14, my folks taught me by sending me out into the neighborhood, actually helping some of the elderly neighbors that were in my neighborhood with outside tasks, with pulling weeds or mowing lawns or whatever they couldn't accomplish really easy because they were physically, infirmed at the time. I can remember the pride that I used to get after helping out. And for many, many months, I never got paid for anything. I would come home and go about my kids' stuff after helping out for a few hours. But as I got into those formative teenage years, then I started picking up a couple of dollars here and there, And for one particular family, the Kirbys, they basically paid me back not in monetary value. They actually took me out on weekend sojourns to some of the lakes in Northern California, where Mr. Kirby basically taught me how to fish in big, large bodies of water, not only at Lake Berryessa and Clear Lake, but also, the San Joaquin Delta and other places. And I really learned a whole nother sport recreation skill from that man. And I really appreciated it. Later on, when I turned 19 and I got into the green industry with my first job at Navale's Nursery, I can remember many, many times how I would sell plant material to customers, and then I would be offered extra work to, hey, can you come over and do the planting for us? We'll be happy to pay you. It's just that my husband or my wife or our time is limited. They couldn't do it. So I started taking advantage of this little sideline extra cash. What did that evolve into? Anyway, I would go over there and say I planted their 12 tam junipers on their little hillside or their walkway area or whatever it was. But then I took some of my childhood lessons and I did just a little bit extra. Maybe I swept the driveway or, washed off the walkway or I did something a little bit and I didn't take money for that particular task. What I did was, hey, Mrs. Smith, if you're really happy with what I did, can you just refer me to any one of your neighbors that might need some help? Or tell them to come down to the nursery and meet me and we can talk about plant sales. And it really blossomed. It started to blossom into something that I didn't think that's where my life was going at the time. Nowadays, after working years and 20 plus years in the green industry, Now I'm trying to pay it forward again. And that's what you're watching right here. You're seeing free education and paying it forward and educating the general public on how to do things themselves outside in the yard. And that is just a continuance of something that I started to learn when I was a 10-year-old boy. And obviously with YouTube and stuff, the remuneration is not why I'm here. You don't get paid. You get penny on the dollar, literally. And it's not why I'm here. It's here because I enjoy the educational value that I hope you guys are getting from each and every one of these episodes and what I do over on the podcast. Remuneration wasn't also the reason I did extra stuff for customers, not only in those younger days, but later as a designer and contractor. If you developed a good business reputation as far as going a little further, a little extra there, you really solidified your business reputation in a community, and it's basically what led me to have a successful landscape business. Now, I don't tell you this stuff to put myself on a pedestal. I really don't. It's just an example that I can pull from. Have I made mistakes in my life? Oh, hell yes. Some big ones, which I regret, and a lot of little ones. But the best thing about them is that they were teaching tools, and I tried never to repeat them again. I learn from them, I grow, and I continue my life journey. Does that sound familiar with you guys at all? So, what about you guys? If you stood in front of the mirror, can you honestly say to yourself that you take whatever skill sets that you guys possess, which you've kind of perfected, have you taken it outside your little fiefdom, your little address there? Have you taken it to the neighborhood and helped out others where you found a need? Or are we basically getting very introverted and we're internalizing and turning ourselves as a family inside just to serve us? In this day and age, with all that's going on, you can see how that would be a natural trend. It really would. And yet, more than ever, have we ever needed to turn and help a neighbor. Turn and help that elderly person down the street, that single mom that has 3 jobs and she just doesn't have time. Those are the kinds of things that I think in my 60s now that we really need to turn to just a little bit. Now let's talk about how landscaping comes to bear on this. You know, you can't go out into the neighborhood and become a neighborhood leader if you and yours aren't really wrapped really tight, really dialed in. Your yard is very presentable. It's good, healthy. You got good vehicles in the garage. Your house is in good order. Your kids are in good order. And everything is, you just reflect that family in the neighborhood that has that proverbial it going on. Because there's nothing more hypocritical than going out and saying, hey, Mr. Jones, I know you broke your leg this summer. Can we help you, rake up your leaves and that kind of stuff? And he looks across the street and sees your place just in a disheveled mess. He'd probably go, yeah, I guess, but don't you want to do your place first? So make sure that your stuff is all dialed in and ready to go. In this day and age, and I don't know how you guys feel, but I know that between mainstream media and anything that you pick up on the news anywhere, we're just inundated constantly, absolutely bombarded every single day with negativity. Negativity about this, about politics, about pandemics, about economies, about foreign powers, and just bam, 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 all the time, negative. If there was one thing I wish I could do, and I don't know how exactly to go about it, but I'd develop a channel that is nothing but good news. Good, successful, wholesome human successes in and around our world today. I don't know how it would do, but it was something that I would certainly watch if you could. But people are always drawn to the negative because they want to see someone else worse off than them. That's why people slow down at traffic accidents, because maybe they just hope, or they tune in to shows that show human suffering and people who don't have what they have, and maybe it makes them feel just a little bit better. I don't know. I would think in this day and age, with the world seemingly wanting to come apart at the seams, It wouldn't be such a bad thing if you could just do a little good, maybe just within your little neighborhood itself, and see if that spark doesn't take hold. See if you can't create that little flame in the neighborhood where everybody starts helping each other out. And I came up with a few ideas. Now, you guys, obviously smart people, you can come up with your own ideas, and within your own neighborhood, you'll see the need, a heck of a lot more than I will from out here in YouTube land. So check out these ideas. I'm gonna go through them pretty fast. So check this out and tell me what you guys think. Maybe you can take some of those ideas and apply them to the Smiths or the Joneses, or whoever in your neighborhood. Maybe you'll find that need, and make sure that you use your kids in these things within reason, obviously. I recently came to the side of a good friend. He and his wife had become very good friends of ours, and Maestro and I went to his side after he lost his dear departed wife to our pandemic. And this man is one of those guys that has been paying it forward for decades. Not because he's super religious or it's just what he's made of. It's the fiber that he just has. And after losing his dear departed wife, that paying forward came full circle. And the stories that he shared with me, have just come back to just solidify and really open my eyes to that paying forward ability. Now, he's a mechanic, and he has great skills when it comes to fixing and building things. And that's how he paid things forward. He helped neighbors, he helped friends, he helped me, and it's really an obvious trait in him. And now, after those decades, when he's at his lowest point in decades, he has all these people that are coming to his side to help him out now, to help him out through the most trying time of his life. So paying it forward does come back to help you. Here's some ideas. Okay, you, your kids, your family, maybe a couple of buddies, help clean up that empty eyesore of a lot in your neighborhood. How about the Smiths who have been infirm because of pandemic or health issues, cancer, whatever? You go over there and you help them weed out their flower beds that they used to take such pride in, and maybe mow the lawn and edge and maybe do some weeding for them. Here's one that's not landscape related. How about fixing a neighbor kid's bike? He doesn't know how to change a flat tire. Mom's at her third job of the day, and maybe they just can't afford an inner tube. So you go over there and teach him how to change out a tire and put a new tube in and reinflate everything, so he has a little bit of transportation, a little fun back in his life. Fixing a broken sprinkler. We've all seen them in the neighborhoods, where you got the old faithful geysers going off because they just don't know, because their timers are adjusted incorrectly, and it comes on at 2 in the morning and nobody knows about it. Go over there and say, hey, I happen to notice, can I give you a hand? Just an idea. This time of year, get some leaf rakes. You and the kids go over to the Joneses there and you help them rake up their leaves. They both are elderly now in their 80s, and maybe they both use walkers or a lark to get around, and they can't rake their stuff up anymore. And rather than them, pay somebody else, you go over there and offer them, rake them all up and bag them up for them. Something that I saw recently with the story I just shared with you was offer a neighbor a ride at a critical time. Maybe they can't drive anymore. Maybe their car broke down and they need to get to a family member for some reason. Offer them a ride. And you don't need to take anything in the way of payment for gas or anything, unless it's to another state maybe. You notice the Smith's house is really getting kind of shabby as far as paint. Maybe you go over there and knock on the door and have a paint scraper in your hand going, hey, I've got some free time coming up. How about you and I tackle the front of the house, and we can just scrape it down and sand it and repaint it for you, just so you feel a little better about your home. Not that you're sending them a message. You're not sending them a message, because if you say it right, it's not coming from up here like clean up your house. It's coming from down here saying, hey, let me help you clean up your house. Hey, how about repair a neighbor's fence? Maybe you see a couple of boards or a post, or a windstorm came through and a couple of sections of fence blew down. Maybe you could help them take it apart and redo the posts and reset it, string it, and fill boards and put it in. Maybe they buy the materials, but they just don't have the skills or the physical abilities anymore to rebuild it. And you throw down an afternoon and give them a hand. How about this? Maybe you got a neighbor, a couple of neighbors, Judy and Bob down the street, and they're kind of struggling marriage-wise and stuff. And Bob works 2 jobs and Judy works a job, and there just doesn't seem to be enough time for the marriage. Well, offer to take their kids for a weekend. Give them a mom and dad weekend off, and you take their kids, little Bobby Jr. and Janie, and tell them to hit the road and go out and have some fun. I tell you what, wish I'd had that when I was younger, I'll tell you that. Hey, volunteer through your local highway department to do one of those highway cleanup things. Maybe it'd be the Charleston Street cleanup crew or whatever you want to call it. And you go out there and take care of a couple of miles of state highway and make sure that your neighborhood that the highway goes through is litter free as much as possible. If you have the equipment, offer up a dump run for somebody that needs it. Maybe somebody's trying to really clean up their yard or whatever they're doing, but they just can't get it off the property. You see them cutting it up to bits and pieces and putting in their yard can, but they've got a mountain of stuff that they need to do. Hey, if you got a dump trailer or a trailer in general or a pickup, say, hey, I saw you really trying to help clean up. I'd like to offer you a hand by, let's go do a dump run together. This one was always popular in my neighborhood growing up, and that is going and washing a neighbor's car, washing and waxing it. As a young kid, I made a couple of bucks doing that and help them out. There's some parts of this country, especially in the fall, winter, and spring, where a lot of sand and salts and everything get put down on roads, and those cars really take a beating. So offer it up. It doesn't have to be for money, just washing a neighbor's car for them. Another thing is, if someone's really stressed for time and stuff, offer to have your kids go over and walk a neighbor's dog. And go around the block 2 or 3 times and give the dog a little exercise, because it sits in the house while someone is always at work, always at work. Here's an idea, but be careful with this one, is if you know neighbors and maybe somebody's really, really stretched for time, they don't have enough time to get out there and be a parent with the kid out in the front yard and shoot some baskets or throw a football or play catch. Offer that up to them. You just have to be careful and know that it comes from here and there's no other ulterior motive. This time of year is a great one if you got somebody who's physically challenged. Help them carry in some heating pellets or split firewood for them and get them all stocked up and ready to go for the winter. Lastly, totally non-landscape related, maybe sometimes you can just recognize that a neighbor needs to have an ear and a shoulder, and maybe they just need to vent. So maybe just sit and listen to a neighbor. No better human compassion than just listening. Hey, that's what I have, Now, I challenge you. Can you see a need in your neighborhood that you might want to fill? I think that in this day and age, people need to do it, and they need to step out of their comfort zones in order to do it. We're so fearful of rejection, scrutiny, that kind of stuff. But if the neighbor truly knows you and they know you on a first name basis and they know, where your heart is, chances are that ain't going to happen. So just pick and choose wisely and know that you have to keep within a safe boundaries. But if you know your neighborhood at all, and in this day and age, neighborhoods, I'll bet you can't name half the people on your block, especially if you live in the denser suburbia where houses are 60 by 100 feet. I'll bet you can't name your neighbor 6 doors down. But you probably do know the neighbors that do need the help. And that's what this whole video is all about. Becoming that neighborhood leader and an example to the neighborhood. And stepping out of your boundaries, paying it forward, and feeling good about yourself. And feeling good about the people that you helped. That's what I have for you this week. Hey, I got a little announcement. Starting next week, you're going to find me over on the new app called Wisdom. I ask you to join me over there. You can actually converse live, and that's where next week's podcast is going to be done. So until next Friday, and as always, to your landscape success, you guys be safe, take care, see you next week.